SOOOO Creations. If you're new to my channel and you're stopping by for the first time, thank you for stopping by. Welcome to my channel. Stick around a while by clicking that red button for more crafting on a budget, more everything on a budget videos to come. And if you click it again when the bell appears, YouTube will notify you every time I'm uploading a new video, depending on the option that you choose in the drop-down menu of the bell. If you're interested in following me on social media, you can find those links in the description box below. What am I bringing to you today? Today I'm bringing to you a DIY that is using Halloween decor items from the Dollar Tree. I'm not much of one who decorates for Halloween. I don't do a lot of Halloween DIYs because it's just not something that I've ever really been into. But I am bringing you some DIYs using Halloween items, and I will be transforming them or using them in a way that is not Halloween inspired, because these are items that you can only get around this time of year. And so I can't wait to show you what I'm bringing to you today using these peat pots that you can get from the Dollar Tree and some of the black floral arrangements that you can also get at the Dollar Tree right now because they are Halloween inspired. This DIY is amazing. You're not gonna wanna miss this, and wait until you see how I use these peat pots. These you can find in the garden section of the Dollar Tree, and you can get them just about at any Dollar Tree. You can get them at the 99-cent store. 16 of them come in this, and I think I'll be using about 5 or 6 of them today. And you're gonna wanna hold on to the rest of them because I've got a Throwback Thursday DIY that you are not gonna wanna miss using these peat pots as well. And so you're gonna wanna stay tuned for this Thursday, the Throwback DIY, the oldie but goodie that I absolutely love. That was one of my favorite DIYs. For now, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into it and let me show you what I do with these peat pots and some of the black floral arrangements that you can get at the Dollar Tree right now. Starting off, I'm showing here that you're gonna need 5 pots. You're only gonna need 4. Using a straight edge razor, I'm gonna cut all 4 of the pots in half. These peat pots kind of feel like a thicker cardboard material. They're made out of some kind of recycled something or other. And what they're used for is you put the soil in them, you put your seeds, and this is what you start your seedlings in. And once they get growing, you can plant these. And because these are made out of some kind of a biodegradable recycled material, once you plant them, the earth just kind of absorbs them, I guess. And so these are a pretty handy little thing to have if you wanted to start a garden. I've used them for that, but I also use them for DIYing like I am today. I'll also be using 4 12 by 12 pieces of scrapbooking paper. Because I had a couple of these buffalo check pieces left over from my last fall DIY that I just posted, I figured that this was the perfect DIY to incorporate these into. You're gonna cut strips of about 1 inch, 1.5 inches, and you should get about 6 strips per sheet. I'm using the checks as a guide just to make it easy, but don't worry about being perfect in your cuts because it's not gonna show. We're gonna do this to all 4 sheets of paper. For this DIY, I went with 2 different pattern styles of paper because I felt like if I just used the buffalo gingham, it was gonna be too much. It was gonna be too busy, too dark. And so I wanted a lighter pattern that would coordinate with the buffalo gingham. And so that's why I chose this wood pattern scrapbooking paper. When I'm cutting these strips, I'm going against the wood grain of the paper because I want the lines to stand out a bit more in the DIY. If I actually cut with the lines, it's not gonna stand out as much, and it's really gonna kind of look like I'm using just a plain white paper. Once you've got all the strips cut, you're then gonna cut your strips into 3-inch pieces. Then using some Mod Podge, it really doesn't matter which one you use, the gloss, the matte, it really is just your preference. I always have the matte on hand, so that's what I'm using today. I'm gonna start off by putting just a bit on the inside of the pot, just like so. Once I've got some on the inside, I'm gonna completely cover the outside of this pot with the Mod Podge, and you really wanna be generous with it. Your pot may get a little bit wet and soft, but that's okay because we're gonna stick this in the oven in a little bit and it's gonna harden right back up once it dries. For this next step, we're gonna take our strips of scrapbooking paper that we cut up into about 3-inch strips, and we're gonna place it in water just enough to get it wet. You don't want it wet enough that the paper is actually gonna tear. Then we're gonna place it on top of our Peats pots. This is a method of decoupage. I feel like when you make the paper wet, it really helps to mold it to whatever it is that you're adhering it to, and so that's why I wet it. Using my scissors, I'm gonna cut notches out of the corners on the ends here. By doing this, it's gonna give you a cleaner coverage. It makes it easier. Then if you cut slits here at the bottom, it's gonna make it easier to cover the bottom with and the top. When you try to fold something that's straight over something, it doesn't cover real nicely. It kind of dimples. And so by cutting these slits, you can see that it folds nicely. It's gonna adhere, and then you can easily fold these slits down and you're gonna have a nice clean fold, nice clean edge, and that's just kind of a trick to the trade. See, look at that, makes it so much easier. And if you have some excess paper that's folding over the end, don't worry about it because we're gonna clip that off later. We're gonna cover the whole pot with about 3 pieces, I believe it was, of scrapbooking paper. Once you've got your pots covered, if you pop these in the oven at about 120, 130 degrees, they're gonna be dry and hardened in about 5 to 10 minutes. My pots are all dried, they are good and hard again, and would you just look at how cool this looks? Again, we are not looking for perfection because the more imperfect these are, the more rustic it feels. That farmhouse rustic feel doesn't have that perfect look to it. It has that aged old look, so it's okay if it doesn't look perfect. I am showing that I've got 10 pots here. You do not need 10. You are going to need just the 8, which equals out to the 4 original pots that you cut in half. Because I had this floral foam ring already on hand, you can tell I've used it in a DIY before. I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna cut 8 to 10 pieces off of this floral foam ring, and you can do it very easily by using a razor and cutting around the outside of it, and then it'll just kind of break apart. Then using some hot glue, I'm gonna place some hot glue right on the edges, and I'm gonna hot glue it to the bottom on the inside of these pots here. All of the flowers that I'll be using today for this DIY you can find at the Dollar Tree now. I picked up these black floral roses. These are definitely the Halloween inspired roses. I'll also be using some berries. These are a Christmas piece of decor, and I'll also be using some of this white baby's breath. I actually needed 2 bunches of the white baby's breath. Using some wire cutters, I'm gonna cut the flowers off of each of the bunches, just using the flowers themselves. I'm cutting the stems at about 3 inches because I'm not real sure how long I need them to be, so I'll worry about cutting them down as I place them. Now remember, if you're doing this DIY outside of Halloween and they don't have the black flowers anymore, Dollar Tree carries white roses all year round that you can very easily spray paint with a 97-cent can of Walmart's black matte spray paint, and you'll get the same effect. When I was putting the flowers in the pots, I decided to go the route of putting the black roses in with the white pots because I knew that the white pots were gonna make the flowers stand out more, and I also knew that the black flowers were gonna bring out the black stripes on the white pots, and that's what I was going for. When I went with the buffalo gingham, I really wanted the white baby's breath and the berries in those pots because I really wanted the berries to stand out, and I knew that using berries in this DIY was going to give it the pop of color that I needed it to give. Using an 8.5 by 11 piece of green felt, I'm gonna fold this felt in half long ways. I do this because it just makes it easier to cut straight versus cutting the whole length of the felt, and I'm gonna cut 2-inch strips. I believe I got 5 or 6 strips out of this one 8.5 by 11 piece of felt. Once I've got my strips cut, I'm then gonna just cut it into squares. No need for perfection, no need for measuring. This is just gonna make the next step a lot easier. When I first started to glue on the felt squares to the wire wreath ring that I got from the Dollar Tree, for whatever reason, I thought it was a good idea to use Aleene's glue. This is a bad idea. It does not adhere. It did not dry well. The felt didn't stick. It came right off. And so I'm not sure why I thought this was a good idea, but I did. And so I ended up going back using hot glue, and the hot glue worked just fine. I still am a bit confused why I didn't just use hot glue in the first place. It must have been like one of those moments. Not sure, but just start off with using hot glue and you'll be good to go. So my reasoning behind cutting the felt into squares is this. If you were to actually take one 8.5 by 11 piece of felt and try to cover this wreath ring with it, it wouldn't work. There wouldn't be enough felt to cover it. You would need several pieces, 2, maybe 3 pieces if you were to trace this and try to get the coverage from side to side all the way around. But if you take one piece of felt and you cut it into the squares like I did, and you adhere it onto the ring like I am here, minus the Aleene's glue, using hot glue, you're gonna be able to cover your wires with one piece of felt. The floral moss that I'll be using today is from the Dollar Tree. Would you take a look at how beautiful this color is? It is so green, it is so bright, it is so vibrant. I am loving it. Typically, the moss that you find at the Dollar Tree is like a mix between this brown and like maybe a dead green or a green that's dying. You don't typically see, or at least I don't anyway, this bright colored, fresh moss at the Dollar Tree. So when I saw it, I picked up several bags of it because I just figured that it would be beautiful in some of my upcoming DIYs. I'm gonna use hot glue. I'm gonna hot glue this to the felt, and the hot glue is gonna hold it just fine. You just really want to be generous with your hot glue. And the purpose behind the felt, again, you can see that it's going to give the moss something more to adhere to than just the wire on the ring. I went with the green felt because if there's areas that you can actually see through the moss, it's not going to be noticeable because we used a green felt. And because this moss bag was packed so good, I was able to cover this whole ring with just one bag of moss. For those of you who may be like me and would be saying, oh my word, that moss is gonna flake off, it's gonna fall off everywhere, I'm gonna have a constant mess to clean up. If you take an aerosol hairspray, this is one that I got from the Dollar Tree, and you give this moss a good coating of hairspray, it's gonna work the same way that it works for your hair. It's gonna stick together, it's gonna hold it in place, and you are going to be free of a moss mess on your floor. It is time to wrap this DIY up by placing our adorable pots onto our moss wreath. And I figured I'd start off by placing the buffalo check pots in the places of 12, 3, 6, and 9. And in between each of those pots, I would then place the white pots, kind of doing it every other pot. Using hot glue is going to work just fine for this. You just really want to make sure that you're generous with the glue on the sides of the pot. And if you've got some of that floral foam that's sticking out enough, you want to put some glue on the floral foam because it's just going to give it that much more to stick to the moss too. I know I typically put twine in my farmhouse DIYs, but what you guys don't know is I love raffia too, so I will be using this black raffia that I got from Target's Dollar Spot. And I figured I'd make 4 black bows that I would place on each of the white pots. I didn't feel like placing them on every pot because they're not going to stand out when it comes to the buffalo check. I couldn't find a white raffia that I was happy with, and so I think just by putting it on the white pots, it's going to give it just a bit more color and the bows are going to stand out just a bit more. And there you have it. This is how I used these peat pots to make this adorable buffalo check farmhouse wreath. I am all about wreaths. I love them. And I am just loving the color combination of the black and white, the green moss, and the red berries. I think that there are so many different aspects of this wreath that actually pop and catch your eye. And I think that it is one of those that can be kept up year round. This is one that I actually made in the spring, I would say about 2.5 years ago, and I actually filmed the DIY for this and never edited it and posted it, but this is also an alternative to Mod Podging the pots, is to actually paint them as well. I am loving this wreath. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I love wreaths. Wreaths are something that I incorporate every season, every holiday onto my front door outside. And so it's something that I make quite often. And I really love the feel of the buffalo gingham with the black flowers. I think that it really just has that farmhouse feel that I really love right now, that I'm just obsessed with, that I'm trying not to go crazy with. But the black gingham is something that I definitely have been trying to incorporate into my decor. And so this was one of the ways that I did that, using the scrapbooking paper and these peat pots. I think that this turned out adorable using some of the black floral that you can get at the Dollar Tree now. If you're watching this video outside of Halloween, you can very easily, like I said before, spray paint some flowers and make them black. But because it's Halloween and they're out right now, I figured it was a good time to bring you this DIY. I hope you all enjoyed today's DIY. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and let's get this video to 5,000 likes, because like I always say, each and every one of those thumbs up, they really do help my channel to grow, and it helps YouTube to notice me just a bit more. And like I said at the beginning, you're gonna wanna make sure and stay tuned for this Thursday's Throwback Thursday, my oldie but goodie, because I will be using some of these peat pots again. Until next time, everybody, I hope you have a fantastic day. Happy crafting on a budget, and bye for now, everybody.